Hey YouTube, what's up? It's your old Uncle Ben here with another guitar lesson for you guys. Today we're going to talk about a technique that plagues beginners and more advanced players alike. We're going to talk about string bending a little bit. I'll try to show you some tricks that you can use to get this technique down, get it sounding good, ways to practice it, get your bends in tune, blah 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 blah, all the stuff that you need to know, okay? Like I said, this is an area that even more advanced players struggle with too, but it's really important for beginners to get a grasp on this stuff so you can start sounding like a pro really fast. Okay, let's check some of this stuff out. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to tell you guys how I started doing bends, which is the very wrong way to do it, okay? Here's what not to do. Whenever you're doing a bend, don't do this. What I mean is, don't just make one finger do all the work, you know? Or maybe like this. Oh, see, that's what happens. One finger isn't typically enough power to really get under the string and push it up or pull it down and make the sound that you're looking for. Whenever I started playing guitar, this is how I thought that bends were supposed to be done. I didn't really know any better. And it would always blow my mind whenever I'd see these tabs for solos that were having you do all these bends and stuff. I couldn't figure out how these players were getting that much power and that much speed grabbing those bends with one finger like that. It wasn't until I watched my favorite guitar player, Steve Vai. I think it was on that first G3 live video, the one with him and Satriani and Eric Johnson on it. I think that was the first time that I noticed that whenever he was doing bends, he was using multiple fingers to do so. Here's what I mean. Most of the time whenever I saw him doing bends, and I started noticing very many other players too, not just Steve Vai, lots of other players. Whenever they do bends, they do this. Fret the note that you're wanting to bend with the ring finger. Okay, I'm on my 13th fret B string right now. I fret that note with my ring finger, and then using your other two fingers as backup, use them to help you push the string up. Okay? That way not just one finger is doing all the work. You got one finger and his two buddies back here helping to do the work and push that string around like that. Way, way easier than trying to use one finger. That's something that I see a lot of my students do at first too. And again, you know, it's hard to even get the note to pitch and really make it sound like you're really grabbing the note with authority. A lot of times the note will just, you know, yank out from under your finger like that. Like I said, one finger is just not typically enough to get a good grip on that note and make it sound good. So whenever you're doing bends, use at least one finger for backup. Maybe if you're doing a lick where you kind of have to bend with your middle finger, like that, you know, at least use your pointer finger behind here to help push it up. There's rare cases where just the pointer finger will have to do a bend, but most of the time whenever you do a bend, it'll be your ring finger fretting a note, your other two fingers backing it up, helping push it up, or your middle finger, in which case you got your pointer finger back here to help you push it up. Rarely do you see guys bend with their ring finger fretting the note, or sorry, their little finger fretting the note and using all three of the other ones to help push it up. That seems like that would be the best. You know, it's like have 4 people on the job rather than 3. But you just don't see that very often. I find it just feels very unnatural to try to fret a note with the little finger and bend them all with the other fingers back here. That ring finger usually does the best job of getting a grip on the note, pushing it up like that. Okay, so that's the basic technique right there. Like I said, never bend alone. Always use a buddy. Use the buddy system whenever you bend, okay? Okay, let's talk about the 2 different types of bends that you see the most often, which are half-step bends and whole-step bends. Those terms, half-step and whole-step, respectively mean 1 note and 2 notes. You know, if I'm on this note and I move up a half-step, there I am, just 1 note ahead. If I move up a whole step, it's 2 notes ahead. 2 halves make a whole, you get the idea. Half-step, whole step. Whenever you're doing a half-step bend, you're fretting a note. Again, let's use that 13th fret on the B right here. And you're bending it until it sounds like the note a half step above it. So you're taking this note and bending it till it sounds like this one. Like that. If I'm doing a whole step bend, I'm taking this note and making it sound like this one. The note a whole step above. Really important to be aware of that if the song is calling for a half step or a whole step bend. Nothing sounds worse than a lick where it's supposed to be a full step and you don't quite make it there. There you go. So it's really important to be aware of if you need to bend up a half step or a whole step. Right bend for the job. Every now and then you will see 1.5 step bends. You know, which would be, again, just use your head, half step, whole step, 1.5 steps. The note that is 3 notes above the one that you're currently on. So it'd be like this. That's a big one. You don't see those really often. Sometimes, you know, some of the blues guys will rip into those, or Dave Gilmour from Pink Floyd, he does those sometimes. I guess Robin Trower, he does that stuff sometimes too. So, important to be aware of. Sometimes you see those, but more often than not, you got the half step and whole step bends. Okay? One more thing about that technique. You need to take into consideration what string you're on to decide if you're going to push the string up or pull the string down. A lot of times people ask me, does it matter if, like, let's say the song calls for a whole step bend on the 12th fret G. Okay, so here's the 12th G, and it's calling for a whole step bend. Should I bend it this way, or should I bend it this way? Down or up? It doesn't really matter, honestly. It has the same effect either way. The pitch is going up, the string is being tightened, which makes the string, which makes the pitch go higher. So it doesn't really matter. If you pull down, it sounds like this. If you push up, it sounds like this. If you were blindfolded, you wouldn't know the difference. It doesn't matter. Like I said, the same thing happens regardless of if you're pushing up or pulling down. You just have to be considerate of what string you're on, most importantly. Obviously, if you're on the B string right here, again, using that 13th fret B like we were a second ago, you don't have much room to pull down there before your string is just falling off the neck. Like that. Or if I'm on my low E string, let's say low E string fret number 13, I can't push that guy upwards at all. There's just not enough neck there. You run out. So generally speaking, if you're on your E string or your B string, either of your highest 2 strings here, you pretty much always have to push up. If you're on your 2 lowest strings, your E or your A, you pretty much always have to pull down. Again, there's just not enough neck there to really accommodate for pushing that string up without making dying elephant sounds. Unless you want that, in which case knock yourself out. But whatever. So on the middle 2 strings though, the D or the G, you pretty much have enough fretboard on either side of those strings to pull down or push up. It really just depends on the lick, and sometimes it's just a matter of what you're comfortable with. I generally find that whenever I can, I like to pull the string down. Reason being is because the musculature and stuff in our hands, our fingers are strongest when they're contracting. You know, whenever I'm pulling the string down, my fingers are gripping and pulling the string down like that by contracting. That's stronger than if they're expanding, if they're going out like that. That's how it is if I'm pushing the string upwards. Again, our fingers are the strongest when they're doing this, not this. So if you can avoid it, I like to pull the strings down more often than not, just because my hands are stronger that way. But there are times that it's unavoidable, and you have to push the string up. Here's a real popular blues lick, you know, that you might hear in any, you know, Chuck Berry song, or even a lot of rock and metal songs and stuff. Something like that. In this lick, I'm hitting the G and bending it up a step, and then I immediately hit the B string. And if I'm pulling the G downwards like that, you know, it's knocking that B string around and I can't get to the B string. So I kind of have to push it up just because that gets it out of the way, you know, otherwise it won't work. So like I said, sometimes you kind of have to push up, but whenever I can avoid it, I don't. I pull down instead. Sounds better. Works better for me. Use my strengths, you know. Okay, let's talk really quickly about another thing that you will notice with your bends. A lot of you guys might be sitting here playing along with these tips, and you'll notice something like this happening. Let's do one right here, 13th fret B. What's happening is where your finger is pushing that B string up, it is basically plucking the string above it. Hear that G ringing out right there? Let me kind of close up here so you can really see what I'm talking about. B string goes up, see how it's knocking the G above it? And so when you come down, it's essentially just plucking that string, and it makes a really crappy sound. That's a problem a lot of beginners have, and they can't figure out how to conquer this. Let me show you a trick. It's all about the index finger. Remember, whenever we're doing a bend, we're always going to have some buddies back here helping us push that bend up. Your pointer finger has an extra special role. Its job is not only to push up, but also to keep the string above you quiet. Keep that guy from ringing out on you. Here's what I'm talking about. Now, typically whenever we do these bends, we fret very much on the fingertip so we get maximum grip. I'll do the same with this guy. He's a good backup. He needs to get a good grip on here. Now with my pointer finger though, with this guy, I'm going to fret a little lower on my finger. Let me kind of push down here so you can really see. Do you see? Well, you can't really see. You can see it a little bit. See where the line on my finger is. It's not on the tip. It's more on the pad of my finger. Because I want the tip of that finger to be muting that G string out. Do you see how this finger and this finger, they're clearly just on the B. This guy, though, is on the B, and also the nose of that finger, just the toe of it, if you want to call it that, is just poking that G. That way when the bend comes down, it doesn't sound that G string out. Again, look at that grip right there. This is one of those grips, dude, that is so important. And I never see any like guitar magazine columns or guitar lesson videos or anything talk about this. But this is what everybody is doing. If everybody wasn't doing this, the bends would always go and sound that G out like that. It's terrible. So like I said, you got to keep that string quiet. And this is the trick to doing it. Just make sure to fret a little lower with that pointer finger. So like I said, the tip of your finger there is just poking the G. It's just going to keep that guy quiet. Some people will not even use their pointer finger to help with the bend. They'll just kind of lightly place it across the strings to keep them quiet and let these two guys do the work. Another cool thing about that is too, if this pointer finger is just loosely barring like that, I'm not gripping, I'm just muting the strings out. You can also do that great thing where you kind of like do a big rake into a bend. That always sounds cool. So like I said, this part of this technique is so important, and most lessons and stuff skip over this. But please pay very close attention. If you want your bends to sound great, you got to keep those other strings quiet. And that the real key to that is using the pointer finger to just poke that string. Again, see how I'm just poking the G like that? Barely touching it. It just takes a little contact, but it makes a huge difference, okay? That way when you let your bend down, it's quiet. Super, don't forget that. Super important. That's really one of those life-saving kind of things that really, usually whenever I show that to the student, they're like, that's what I've been missing. That's why my bend sounded raunchy and I had these other strings ringing out that I didn't want. Big difference. Big difference. Be sure to always practice with that in mind, okay? Speaking of practice, let me tell you guys some great ways to practice your bends, because nothing sounds more raunchy than somebody going for a bend and it's not in tune. It's just shy of pitch, or maybe it's a little over pitch. That's what sometimes people don't take into account. You're starting at a note and you're wanting to bend it till it sounds like another note. It's not just a matter of push it up an inch, push it up 3/4 of an inch or whatever. It's not about that. You're taking a note and transforming it into a higher note. So it has to be in tune. It must be in tune, or else you'll just sound totally terrible. You'll sound like you're out of tune with the band playing behind you or whatever. The best way to practice your bends and make sure that your pitch is good is to plug your guitar into an electronic tuner. And basically just practice bending and making sure that where you stop bending is where that needle on the tuner is just right there dead center. You know, you're going to hit a note just to start with. I'm on the 13th fret B right now, so that's a C note. So your tuner will have you right there at C. It's like, yep, you're on C, you're on pitch. And then as you bend the note upwards, it'll scroll over, you know, just keep moving that needle over until you're getting closer to the note D. Because again, we're bending up a whole step to the note D right here. That's what we're practicing right now, this. You'll notice that as you get close to that note D, you know, it'll have the D note right here, and that needle will get closer and closer to it. You know, you'll want to stop your bend when that needle is right there at D. If you're going under, it's going to sound sour. If you're going over, it's going to sound sour. Just practice with that tuner, getting that bend right up to pitch. Bam. Just so that you got that needle right in the center like that. You don't have to worry about going out and buying an electronic tuner either. If you've got an iPhone like everybody on the planet does now, or maybe an iPod Touch, there's a lot of different tuner apps that you can download totally for free. Just go to the App Store and look. I'm sure that there's stuff for you know, Droid and all that other stuff too. I use an iPhone, so that's all that I know about. But I'm sure that there's free tuner apps for any phone that you've got, or iPad, or your tablet, or whatever. So go find a free one. They usually work just fine. And like I said, practice bending your notes until they're just dead in the middle there, right in tune, okay? Super, super, super important that you get used to doing that. Cool thing is, you're not going to have to do that for all that long. Once you repeat that, you know, bending motion and getting that note bent up to pitch a few hundred times, it starts to become like muscle memory. You know, it starts to become like muscle memory. Anytime that we perform an action several hundred times, you know, our muscles start to learn it. They start to do it before we even tell them to do it. Think about like tying your shoes. You know, the first couple hundred times you did that when you were a kid, you probably had to sit there and think about taking them and X and then under and then tight and then all that jazz. But now your hands just do it. You don't even tell them. Or maybe typing on your computer, you know. First you really had to sit there and hunt for all those keys. But after you sit there daily doing a little bit more, you start to notice that your eyes aren't even looking at what you're doing. Your fingers are just flying and finding those notes. Our bending is the exact same way. It'll always be partially based on your ear, of course. You know, you'll be listening and making sure that you're bending up the notes to pitch. But you'll notice that after a while, your fingers start to have this ability to just bend a note up without even, you know, you thinking about whole step or whatever. You'll know. You know what I mean? You'll know what it feels like if you're in tune and doing that bend. So, like I said, you'll kind of have to concentrate on it for a while. But after that, muscle memory takes over. It's all good from there, you know? Okay, that's a basic idea. That's a great way to get everything started here. I want to keep this short. So, I might do another lesson about some more bending tricks, talking about vibrato and stuff like that. I'll probably just do a different lesson about vibrato. That'd be great. And I'll talk about vibrato and vibrato on bends, stuff like that. So this should be enough to get you started with your bending. Quick recap. Never bend alone. Never make one guy do the work. Always use backup. It doesn't matter where those fingers are. They don't have to be on any specific frets or anything. They just need to be helping carry the load. Okay? While you're doing that, make sure that that tip of the pointer finger is always just poking up against that next string. Making sure it stays quiet. Otherwise you end up getting that nasty sound of that string ringing out. So make sure you always touch that string a little bit. Practice your half step and whole step bends using an electronic tuner for a while, making sure that you're getting them totally up to pitch. And I think if you do that stuff for just a few weeks, you'll be golden. I think you'll be bending like a pro and really starting to sound like a real guitar player. Okay, I hope that helps you guys out a lot. like I said, that's an area that beginners and pros both struggle with sometimes. So I think everybody can benefit from that. Let me know if you got any questions, and I'll answer those in the comments down below. And let me know too, maybe if you're a beginner guitar player and you've got specific stuff that you want to see some lessons about, I'll be happy to accommodate that and do some lesson videos. Also keep in mind too that I teach lessons via Skype to the entire world. So let me know if you want some one-on-one time with me. We can work on whatever it is that you're looking to improve and teach you up, teach you some good stuff, I hope. Anyway, please subscribe to my channel, share it to your buddies, and have a good day. Happy shredding. Thanks for watching. See you guys.